Hey guys, Sam here from H's Media TV on YouTube. In today's quick tutorial I will show you one method on how I color grade my images to get the nice cinematic look you always wanted. For this method I will use a third-party plugin called Color Finesse. Don't worry guys, you don't have to buy it, because if you purchase After Effects it comes with the program, so it's already included. Okay, but before I start, I just want to take some more seconds to talk about color correction and color grading, so the differences between both terms. Because I often read or see that a lot of people out there don't know what word belongs to which process, so I hope that I can make that a bit more clear. So, what is color correction and what is color grading? Well, color correction is more about the technical side, so it's about finding or getting the perfect white balance, about getting finding the black and white point, remove color tints or balancing your colors, get the right exposure, so all about getting your image as clean and as neutral as possible, because that's the preparation for the next step, which is the color grading. Color grading, on the opposite, is more about getting creative, finding the right color or the right colors for your film, for your mood, so that you can, just enhance certain moments or make your audience feel in a specific way. So once again, in short words, color correction is more technical and color grading is more creative. So I hope that's more clear now. So I think now we can start. Okay guys, like always, you want to start by importing your footage in a new composition, so for example like I did here. And then what you want to do is simply look through your footage to find a nice frame, so for example, something like that, maybe where your actor is looking cool or whatever. Then we want to create a new layer, so layer, new adjustment layer, and call it CC or color correction, it doesn't matter. And the first effect we want to apply is called shadows and highlights. So apply this effect. And as you can see, this effect is, it kind of looks like this fake HDR effect. So the first thing you always want to do is uncheck auto, because auto, like here, will look terrible. Okay, so let's make this very extreme. So I don't know if you're used to, for example, Adobe Camera Raw or Lightroom. This effect right here is basically the same as shadows and highlights in those programs. So what I recommend for After Effects is to use a setting, let's say between 5 and 15. I will now use maybe something like 8, because I have this bad Canon codec right here. So as you can see, I'm just open up the shadows and bring down the highlight so that it becomes a bit more flat. Okay guys, so let's go back to our effects and presets window and type in Color Finesse and apply this effect to our adjustment layer. Then click on Full Interface. Okay. The cool thing about this plugin right here is that we have all these monitors right here, and what they show us is a lot of color information. So for example right here we see the brightness or the color, and it's very helpful, especially if you, like me, don't have the money to buy a high-end monitor which is calibrated. So it's nice to have something to look at. Okay, so basically what I usually start with is looking at the image, if there's any color tint or just if the colors aren't balanced. But in this case I think it looks kinda good. I think I've done a good job at finding the right white balance, but nevertheless check our RGB WFM or waveform monitor and look at the 3 colors right here, so red, green and blue. So our blue channel right here is way too weak, way too low. So we can change that by choosing the first checkbox right here, HSL, and then click on View Offsets and also enable this checkbox. And what you see now are basically 4 color wheels. They work the same way as, for example, in Adobe Premiere or in Sony Vegas. You will ignore the master for the moment because the master affects the whole image and we don't want that. So yeah, the blues right here are kind of low in the mids, so let's go to our mids color wheel and drag this to the blue side to just enhance the blue color. So maybe something like that, so that it's kind of even. It's just messing around, so I think that looks good. But then we see that our blue in the highlights is way too high. So what you want to do is, if you want to remove a color, so for example in this case blue, you always want to pull the color wheel in the opposite direction. So in this case it's yellow. So maybe, let's say maybe something like that looks good. Of course it's not that perfect. And yeah, after that, look at the image and I think it looks a bit better. And yeah, now it's time to find our black and white points. So to do that, you just open up this Luma WFM window right here. And what you see is basically the whole brightness for the whole image. So 0 means it's pure black and 100 means it's pure white. So what you can see now here is that we already have some clipped blacks, but we don't have any real whites. So we will change that by simply activating the levels adjustment layer right here. It's basically the same like the levels adjustment in Photoshop and After Effects in general. So also make sure you check master and then just move the white point to the left side to make this image a bit brighter. So maybe something like that. Okay, and we will add a bit more black because I think that will give a bit more contrast, which is what we want. So just a tiny bit, so maybe something like that looks good. And yeah, that's our basic color correction. So yeah, sometimes you may have some footage which is, I don't know, just off white balance or too dark, too bright, so you need more time, but in this case it was very quick color correction. So just click OK. So yeah, if you now compare the before and after, you think you will see the difference. For example, the skin tones look much more realistic or natural. So before it was very, I don't know, yellowish, greenish or something like that. And now I think it looks way more real. And that's what you basically want to do with the color correction. Okay, so after that, the next step you want to do is creating a new adjustment layer and call it tritone. And then apply an effect which is called also tritone. Okay, here it is, and apply it to your adjustment layer. And what you can see now is that the color by default is something brownish, orange, I don't know. And you want to change that to the color you like. I usually prefer for this scenario something cool, so I will choose a blue color. So maybe something like that looks good. And then we will use the picker here to change the color to the for darks to also this blue, and then just drag it down to a very dark blue. It's almost black. Okay, so that's it. And then you want to change this percentage right here to mix with original image. So let's say something about 65 looks good. So it's just giving this image a slight blue tint. So here's the before and here's the after. And yeah, after we prepared our image right here, it's now time for the actual color grading. So create a new adjustment layer and just call it, for example, CG for color grade. Then once again go to your effects and presets window and apply the color finesse effect to your adjustment layer right here. Then open up the plugin. And yeah, now it's time for the actual color grade. So once again go to your HLS menu right here. Of course activate the checkbox. And yeah, now it's time to mess around with our colors. Like I said, for this scenario I prefer something cool or in the blue area. So I will drag my shadows and the midtones in the blue color space. So maybe something like that. Okay, I think that looks good. And what you want to do now is move your highlights to the opposite side, so it's complementary colors. And yeah, for blue it's once again it's this yellowish orange color tone, and this look is often called the Hollywood look because you will find that look in, I don't know, many blockbusters out there. So yeah, next time you watch a big Hollywood production, just take a look at the grading. You will often notice that the skin tones are a bit more orange and that everything else is blue. So I think something like that looks good. By the way, don't worry about the blue skin tone, we will fix that later. But first, it's now time to add even more contrast, so just a simple S-curve. Maybe something like that. Don't add too much contrast because later in our final step I will show you one cool method to add soft contrast in the shadows. Okay, so finally go to your secondary menu right here, uncheck these right here and just click on A, and then go to source to remove all this blue tint. And now take your color picker right here and start selecting just some of your skin tones. Just pick, I don't know, various colors, so from dark to bright. I think this was the same like here, so maybe something like that looks good. Then click on show preview, and what you can see now is the same like Luma matte, so all white pixels are visible and all black pixels are invisible. You can also choose, for example, mask, so you can see red is masked out and everything which is not red is visible for your image. Okay, so now I will choose alpha and now just mess around with the softness and the luma and chroma tolerance to just get the skin tones right. Okay, so maybe something like that, maybe add a bit more softness. By the way, of course, the background here is also selected because it may have the same colors like in the skin, but that does matter for this tutorial right now. So I think that looks pretty cool. And now just add a bit more saturation and move your color wheel to the orange or yellow area. And as you can see, our skin tones get much more orange, much more real without this blue all above our image. So I think something like that looks good. So here's the before and here's the after. I think you see the difference, so it looks way better with this complementary color in our skin tones. And yeah, that's our final color grade. So if you're happy with the result, then just click OK. And like I said, now it's time for our final step, which is adding contrast, especially to the shadows. And you will do that by simply hit Ctrl D to duplicate your video layer, drag it to the top, then go to your effects and presets window and type in HLS or color balance, and then apply this effect and change this color tone to 180 degrees. And yeah, now this image looks terrible, of course, but what you want to do next is change the blending mode here to soft light. And I think this principle is called soft shadows. I'm not sure if it's called like that exactly, but yeah, let's call it soft shadows for the moment. What you can see now is that our image has way too much contrast, but we can change that by simply adjust the opacity for this layer. So hit T for opacity and then just change it to, I don't know, 25 or 30%. So here's the before and after again. So I think it looks great with this effect. Like I said, it adds some contrast or some soft contrast, especially to the dark areas. Okay, so like always, change the name to soft shadow, and then yeah, you're done with your color grading. So yeah, the last step you may want to add is some sharpening, and you do that by creating adjustment layer again, call it sharpen, and then just apply an effect called unsharp mask. Okay, and then just choose a strength of, let's say, about 110 and the radius about, I don't know, 0.85 or something like that. And this will add just a tiny bit of sharpness to your image. So yeah, after that we are done with our color grading. Of course, you can add a letterbox, something like this, to give it an even more cinematic touch, but yeah, that's up to you. Please keep in mind that this method is one of, I don't know, 1,000 ways to color grade your image. It's just a method I usually use for my images because I think Color Finesse is a great plugin. And with this method you can of course create different looks, so for example something greenish right here or something warm. Just change the colors in your tritone layer and your color grading layer to warm or green or I don't know, the color you prefer. So yeah, that is my color grading tutorial. It is a bit longer than it was supposed to, but yeah, I try to explain every single step in full detail. But yeah, once again, just to remember everything is start with the color correction, so remove color tints, get the right exposure, find the perfect white balance. Then for this method use tritone to give it a slight color tint, and then add an adjustment layer with Color Finesse to create your final grading. Use the soft shadow principle with a HLS effect and soft light, and yeah, after that add a last layer with a sharpen effect, and of course letterbox if you want. Yeah, I hope you liked this tutorial. Once again, if you did, please hit the like button, share and subscribe, and if you have still more questions and some requests, just leave a comment or write me a message. I would really appreciate it. Yeah, so I hope I see you next time, stay creative and have fun.